Language Lessons with Natalia. Today I am going to talk about the conditional in English, specifically conditional 0, type 1 conditional, and type 2 conditional. So the conditional in English is used to talk about things that are possible, not things that are reality, but things that could happen given a certain condition. So in English full conditional sentences, there's usually two parts. The first part is the dependent clause, that is the conditional clause. It sets up whatever condition is necessary for something else to happen. The conditional clause, the dependent clause, usually includes a preposition if. That's why they're usually called if clauses. But you can also use other words like unless something happens, or provided that something happens, as long as something happens. It doesn't always have to be if, but you often see if something happens, or if something happened. And that is the dependent clause. And that's a dependent clause because it can't stand on its own. For example, you can say, if I go to the store. That doesn't stand alone as a sentence. You need something else. And that's why it's a dependent clause. And usually those are called if clauses when you're talking about conditional sentences. And then the second part, that is the consequence of whatever this condition is. So if something happens, then there is a consequence. So that's the second part. That's called an independent clause because it can stand alone. For example, you can't just say, if I go to the store. That's a dependent clause because you need something else in order for that to be a full sentence. If I go to the store, I will get groceries. I will get groceries is an independent clause because that can stand alone as its own sentence. But when it comes to conditional, you set up a condition with the conditional clause and then you have the result or the consequence of whatever that condition is. So let's talk about the different kinds of conditional. We'll start with zero conditional because that's pretty simple. Zero conditional is used to talk about general truths, things that are true in any situation. It doesn't depend on time. It's just something that always happens. If one thing happens, another thing happens. And as you may have just noticed, I used the simple present in both clauses. So the if clause, if something happens, is followed by the main clause, something else happens. That's the zero conditional. If I drink coffee, I feel awake. That is something that is a general truth, and it happens all the time. Let's move on to type 1. This is a possible condition, and it's probable result. So something that will probably happen, and a very possible condition, something that's likely to happen in the future. So, for example, I can say, if I drink coffee, simple present, in type 1, the first clause, or the if clause uses simple present. If I drink coffee, and then the independent clause uses the simple future, so I will. But you can also use I'm going to, but I'm just going to use the simple future for now. So if I drink coffee, I will feel awake. So rather than being a general truth, this is something that will probably happen in the future as long as something else happens. In that situation, we're talking about something that is a possible condition. I could drink coffee. It doesn't mean I'm drinking coffee right now. I could drink coffee. It's possible. If I drink coffee, I will feel awake. It's a probable result. And in this, we can also substitute will with a few other words that change the meaning a little bit. For example, I can say, if I drink coffee, I might feel awake. Might means that it's possible, but it's not a definite outcome, but it's still in the future as a possible condition and a probable result. Another word that you can replace is should. If I drink coffee, I should feel awake. That means that it is an expected outcome, but it's not something that's definitely going to happen. And then moving on to type 2. These are situations that have a hypothetical condition and a probable result. The hypothetical condition could be something that's possible. It could be something that is not happening. It could be something that is not possible at all, talking about an alternative to a current reality. So you can think of it maybe as an alternate universe. Type 2 also uses the two clauses. So type 2 uses the dependent clause, the if clause, and the if clause uses simple past. If I drank coffee, that means that I probably didn't drink coffee now. So you're talking about a possible alternate reality. If I drank coffee, and then the independent clause uses would. If I drank coffee, I would feel awake. So this is type 2, and you can also replace would in this case with could, which means that it is a possibility and it's not as definite as would. So these are both hypothetical conditions and its probable result in some alternate reality or alternate future possibility, but it is not the case of what is happening now. So it's a hypothetical condition and it's a probable result, but it's also something that has not happened and something that might not happen. So the difference between if I drink coffee, I will feel awake, that's type 1, is talking about something that is probable or definite in the future. When I say, if I drank coffee, I would feel awake, it's not clear whether I will do it or not. It's probable, it might happen, but it's not completely clear. And it could also be a situation that is not possible whatsoever. Another thing to note here is that it doesn't matter which order the independent clause and the dependent clause come in. For example, in zero conditional, you can say, I feel awake if I drink coffee, or if I drink coffee, I feel awake. In the zero conditional, that's fine. Let's look at the first conditional. If I drink coffee, I will feel awake. I will feel awake if I drink coffee. The order of the clauses doesn't matter there. In English, you can do either. And this is the same for conditional 2 as well. So you can say, if I drank coffee, I would feel awake, or I would feel awake if I drank coffee. Both of those are perfectly fine. Let's look at a few other examples. If I study, I will pass the exam. What kind of conditional is that? That's type 1, because you're setting up a condition that's probable and there is a definite outcome or a likely outcome. Then if we change that to conditional 2, if I studied, I would pass the exam. This means that you're probably not going to study, and it is a likely scenario, but it is not possible, and it is hypothetical. And then if you look at the zero conditional, if I study, I pass the exam. That is a general truth, something that will always be true. Anytime you study, you will always pass the exam. So that's just a general truth. So this has been the review for conditional in English. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, or you can try and come up with your own conditional phrases in the comments as practice.
Was a young boy who had everything that he wanted still. He knew something was missing from his gold collection, but find a new direction.